Hey everybody, it's Christian Buckley doing another MVP Buzz Chat, and I'm talking today with Jerome. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me on, Christian.
I always enjoy talking with folks from your part of the world. It's one of my favorite destinations. I've been all over the Southern Island, like multiple times. I actually need to explore the Upper Island more. But
Yes, yeah, and it's the North Island completely different,
yes, it is.
whole different geography. That's the other side of it too. So yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world to be in.
Well, as a hardcore Lord of the Rings fan, there's different parts where I'm nerdy enough that I needed to go and see the certain filming locations. And I know that there's some locations that you can only get there via boat or
Mhm.
helicopter drop. But there are plenty of places that you can drive to. But for
Yes.
folks that don't know who are you? Where are we? What are we talking about location wise? And what
Yeah.
do you do?
Yep. So Jerome, I get called JB, and amongst many other things on the way through. I'm based just outside of Christchurch in the South Island of New Zealand, as Christian you've just alluded to, and I spend my day as a principal consultant for Mantel. So we're a system integrator here in Australia and New Zealand, and my day is spent doing this, that, and everything else from an Azure perspective, and platform engineering and migrations, and you kind of name it. It's the sort of thing that I've ended up doing on the way past. But yeah, recent MVP in the Azure infrastructure as code and also in the DevOps space. So I here run the Aotearoa New Zealand GitHub user group.
Huh?
That's been going now for about 12 months. Recently taken over the Christchurch Azure user group as well. And so we're getting that back up and running as well. So active in teaching, in demonstrating, write periodically as a blog, just mostly for my own thoughts to remember things by as I run into problems. And then, yeah, involved with the user groups and training from there. So in a nutshell, that's me.
I do like asking that question for MVPs of like your primary contribution types because there's such a variety
Mm.
that's out there. I know I get a popular question, and I'm sure you've gotten peppered with a lot of these types of questions as you became an MVP, where suddenly people in your network are like, Jerome, how did you do this? How'd you swing this? What else can I do around that? What's kind of your meat and potatoes contribution types?
Yeah, so for me, it's the organisation and running of the user groups. I think has been a big part. Although I've again a number of open source contributions as well. So, and as I think back to my MVP application and what I put in there, I did a couple of significant contributions to the Terraform Azure RM and Azure AD providers around privileged access management. So that's over the last couple of years been involved doing that side of things. More recently, I wrote a little application to emulate the Terraform docs side of things, where you feed it in this for Bicep, feed it in a Bicep file, and it will generate nice documentation for you in the very similar sort of style. So I've just been playing around with that. I mean, to a certain extent, I kind of look at it and go, I actually don't know what it is I necessarily contributed to get into the MVP program. It's just sort of kind of going and teaching and sharing the knowledge that I've accumulated over a number of years and giving back to the community. So,
Yeah. I know that I don't want to put out there. I know that there's some folks that believe that the technical standards for MVP program it's different. There is no checklist, meaning like, hey, I do all these things,
hmm,
I meet that criteria, therefore give me the award. There are people that are not very technical but very active in the
hmm,
community aspect, more on the marketing business side of things. There are some that don't do any of the public
hmm,
community related things, but are delivering value and working very closely with the product teams, engineering
hmm,
teams, and kind of behind the scenes. In fact, I know a couple, one's now a former MVP that lives out in the Seattle area, who I would always say, like when Microsoft product team, I was originally a SharePoint MVP. In fact, my renewal is still SharePoint. I'm still a SharePoint MVP. But when the SharePoint team had questions about SharePoint, they would go to him.
hmm,
And it was literally the case. They would go to him. He was constantly over there. But that's not what it's about. It's,
hmm,
and so it's interesting to look at the mix of contribution
hmm.
type. What was your origin story as far as the program? Did you know about it for a long time? Did you try to get in, or was it one of these just kind of, I'm not sure how it happened, kind of fell into it?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been aware of the program for a long time. I think back to my early days in consulting, and when Azure arrived in Australia, I was sort of early on the boat at that point. I managed to avoid service management, which was quite nice, and was resource manager all the way through. But at that stage, I was listening or reading from a number of MVPs, and one who stands out is Aidan Finn. Reading a lot of his content at the time. So I was well aware of the MVP program. And I remember going back probably 10, 15, well, probably 15, nearly 15 years ago now, talking to my bosses about, was that something from a consulting firm for us that made sense about me trying to reach into the MVP program? Long story short, at the end of it, we sort of decided that no, that wasn't the place for me. I had other priorities in life at that stage, and so dedicating the time to really try and push into the MVP program, making sure I was contributing in areas, wasn't something that I wanted to make the time for at that stage. But now fast forward again, that decade or so, and really, I suppose I got into the GitHub user groups and that side of things, not for the purpose of becoming an MVP, but to give back to the community. And one of my work colleagues who is ex-Microsoft, he was working with us at Mantel and has now gone back to Microsoft, Will Valida. He was an MVP as well. Approached me just before he went back to Microsoft recently and said, have you ever thought about becoming an MVP? Would you mind if I put you forward for that? And I was like, oh, why not? I'm quite happy. I mean, the recognition is nice in terms of that. Yeah. But yeah, from my side of it, it was never, I know, and never a case of I particularly want to get there. I know some people very much have that desire and they want to see that. And that's great in terms of a focus if that's where you want to go. From my side, it was almost the falling into it side of things. I'd sort of not so much forgotten about the program, but it kind of gone, it wasn't a focus for me to do. So when Will made mention of it, it was like, okay, it sounds nice. And it's nice to be here. It's nice to have to be able to build some of those deeper connections, particularly with the product group and things like that. The number of times support told me to stop trying to use products in certain ways is kind of nice to go, well, now I can go back to the product group and say, can we maybe think about using these in these ways? So that I think will be great. But yeah, it wasn't something that I set out to get to, but it's kind of nice to be here.
Well, I think a common refrain from the majority of MVPs that I talk to, especially, is that, we would do the things that we're doing today, regardless of the program. It's just part of our DNA that we do this stuff. But I mean, certainly, I mean, I think there are areas where, like being involved in organizing, running user groups. I mean, certainly help out wherever you are and go. Like I was just at an event in Seattle a couple of weeks back, and so I'm like, anything I can help with. You need me like to do something? Oh, can you get this down to this other speaker and help out? Like whatever the organizers need help with, I'm happy to go and do this. I'm friends with them already, but if you're organizing user groups, because there's a lot more work that happens, as you know, behind the scenes to keep that going, and the promotion and the organization and running of that, and then other events that you might do over the course of the year around the user group. And I think Microsoft does look at that and understands that, hey, that's a more substantial contribution type than writing blog posts.
Yeah. Yeah, and because I think it's also part of that learning aspect. I mean, blog posts are great as well for teaching, and they're a great way to work through and allow people to work through at their own pace something. But yeah, it's also the networking aspect, and that's the other side of the user group I think gets missed from a lot of people. It has been one of the things I've really pushed. So we made a big push to get back in person rather than just running online user groups as well.
Are you still? Are you doing hybrid still?
We're doing hybrid, and we've actually found that that's worked really well for us. And in part, particularly for the GitHub one, New Zealand's a geographically large area, but in terms of population is relatively small. I mean, we're only 5 million people across the whole country, and even our major city is only 1.3 million, or it's probably closer to 2 million people now from there. So your reach isn't necessarily as great for some of those side of things. So the hybrid has worked really well to actually open it up and allow more people to be involved to a point, but a big part of it, and this is something we're starting to think about as well, is trying to do hybrid with multiple locations. So to actually get people into a central location, to network, to get to see one another and to build those relationships, and then learn in addition to that. So it's not just about let's convey some information. It's also about let's get to know one another. Let's build those connections. And that builds opportunities for integrators to help people with problems. But it also allows people to go, hey, I've got other people that are in these areas that I can bounce ideas off, and we can actually start to learn from one another as well.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, I think that I know that like just having moved and the struggles of the user group that's been going for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so as they're kind of asking the questions of what do we want to do, what do we want to be next, as numbers have remained small since post pandemic. And then I've moved down to an area where the user group just went away, it just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to talk with local people and see what's going on here. But that it's time to change things up and maybe do something different and experiment. Like what's in the harm with experimenting? And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, hey.
Absolutely, and I think that for anyone who's listening who is keen to become an MVP, that's a good thing as well. Experiment about how you're communicating and how you're getting information out, and find the niche that works for you, because everybody works differently. But with the user groups, absolutely, let's try something different. Let's see what we can make it work with, and go from there.
Yeah. Well, let's dig a bit more into kind of your passions around the technology. Like, what areas are you focusing on the most right now? Like recent announcements, new features, new something or other that you're most excited about, writing about, talking about?
Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose the buzzword bingo, AI is where everybody is at
I've
the
heard
moment.
that. Yeah.
And it's this little thing that seems to be reasonably important from there. And so with that, it's really at the moment is trying to work out where this technology works, where it doesn't, and sort of guiding that course. I've likened it recently to the internet, and I think it's a revolution similar to the internet, where everybody suddenly made everything internet enabled, and we had the .com boom from there, and then we had the bust. And I think we're going to see the same with AI. But in that, what we're going to find is, where is this actually useful? Where can it make our lives easier? And it's really that question around, again, are we looking to AI to be a tool, or are we looking at it to be a replacement? And there are different camps of thought, even in the different AI vendors, about where things are going and that sort of thing. So for me, at the moment, it's looking to navigate that, particularly with our customers, about where can they use AI, where does it make sense in my own work, where can I leverage AI as a tool in order to get through a lot of the grunt work. And what that then leads to is some of the new announcements. And we just did a couple of weeks ago a GitHub user group and then an Azure user group here in New Zealand, going through some of the best items out of build. And so from my side, looking at the coding agents that have come out with GitHub, where you can now assign an issue. And I'm very happy to see overnight that they've changed the pricing of that. It used to be you paid for all the individual requests. And so you could run 30, 40, 50 premium requests per PR. Well, it's now down to one per session. So that there is a huge game changer on that side of things. But that ability to craft up an issue, craft up a PR, assign that to Copilot to go and actually do the work for you in the background, I think is a great way, particularly for a lot of the tech debt that organizations have, but also for creating new features. If you can define it well, this is going to speed up the velocity of a lot of software development. So there's a lot of interest and excitement there. Tie that in with the app modernization we talked about in that as well. The ability to help teams go and say, well, here's our Java code base. Well, here's our old .NET code base. How can we get this up to latest versions without somebody having to go and manually find and replace and copy paste for 3 weeks?
Yeah.
To do everything, let's do this in under an hour,
Yeah.
and actually be able to focus on the positive work. And then from the Azure side of things, that also came out of build was Azure SRE agent, and the whole agentic DevOps mindset is again something that I find really, really interesting, and was just kind of wishing, even in my day job yesterday, that SRE agent was slightly more available. Again, had a problem that I had to go and try and track down. Why are logs not ending up in our App Insights instance?
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have just set the agent at that to go, you go and have a look and find out what's going on here. Come back to me in 15 minutes while I'm doing something else in the background to help me understand what's going on, rather than having to spend an hour working through the logs and what logs I had to try and work out what was going on. So AI as a tool is something I think is going to make a huge difference in the industry. We just need to understand how best to harness it without it ruling our lives.
Yeah. What's interesting is that, I mean, over 25 years ago, is that right? 25 years ago, 26 years ago, well, I started learning about and what is now referred as the DevOps space, but around the ability to go in these massive models and do pattern recognition and look for, within code, look at reuse of that code, smarter reuse of that code. Like, we're at a place where we can finally do this, and without having all of the infrastructure that you have to go build out to be able to support that. And again, the massive data models to be able to build that. And, we just didn't have what we have today with the internet to this scale. But yeah, people forget about just on the, in fact, I just was having a conversation with a couple students that were looking at computer science that are focusing on computer science, and having that conversation of like opportunities, areas to focus. And I think that there's a revolution that's going to happen in the DevOps off space to be able to go and I think it's going to revolutionize. AI will revolutionize that space. I think it's going to look like it does today in another 2-3 years with some of what's happening. And I'm of the philosophy, like, I don't think AI is taking away jobs. It's people who understand how to leverage AI that are going to take away jobs. And so it's important that we experiment, that we understand the tools, the platforms that are on the rise, how they're working, how we can utilize them, be in the conversation is critical.
Absolutely. I mean, it's in the same way that, jobs will change out of this. And I think it's a lot of what you're saying in terms of that. We become, again, everyone becomes more of a manager, but you're less about managing people potentially and more about managing some of these agents on the way through. We're no less busy today than we were before robotics came along for all the manufacturing and everything like that. AI is a similar kind of move, but I agree DevOps is going to be really interesting to see how we can plug in these models into pipelining, into a lot of that automation side of things to improve the quality of what we're doing, to improve the reliability of deployments and things like that. It's going to be really interesting to see. And even taking it the step further, and this is where I start to look at the whole platform engineering side of things and go, how can we leverage AI and that conversational nature for our developers to have patterns defined to a point, but be able to maybe not have to be maintaining infrastructure as code repositories, but leveraging AI that can go and generate the required infrastructure as code, tied in with all of the Microsoft well-architected best practices and everything as they adapt them. And it's just a conversation of, this is what we're looking to do. Let's go and have the conversation around what works from an infrastructure perspective. And then the platform engineering is far more around the guardrails, making sure that our policy in Azure is right to enable teams to do things what they need to in a safe and a secure manner, without the time spent in the mundane areas of updating Terraform modules and Bicep code for the latest API versions and to add new functionality into them. That's stuff that can be handed out or potentially abstracted completely. So,
well, I'll extend that even a step further. That business users who understand, that, like the logical, the approach and how to work with the technology can go and give better requirements of what they need and the outputs they're looking for. I mean, I'll use as an example today, going in and using generative AI to build out a wireframe. It's amazing at what it can do today. It's not working code. It's mostly garbage, but it's a lot closer and gives, then hand that over to the engineering team, the operations teams, to have a better understanding. I see what you're trying to do there and these components, and go and architect a proper solution. But even that, it's getting smarter. As you said, if you give it, it's use it from a Microsoft 365 standpoint. Until about a month ago, they added in, I was doing Copilot training, Copilot for PowerPoint, for example. So you would give it, you say, hey, here's my company template. And it wouldn't use your template. It would imagine what something that looks similar to your template looks like, and do something that kind of looks like it's going towards. It's an illegitimate half cousin of your template. Whereas now you can attach your template right there, and it will utilize it. By default, you can have it in the section. It will then go and utilize it, and then add and extend. And so just the same, you could add in, here's my compliance governance policies. Here's the changes to the languages. Here's we're going into this country. They have these standards around data usage. Adapt, use that, modify it. It'll be like using it for translation services, like porting applications between operating systems will get much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, even in my day-to-day work, this has been the really interesting thing over the last couple of months, is getting stuck into the AI side of things to understand that is, taking Microsoft well-architected framework, taking PCI compliance standards, our Prudential Regulator Authority here in Australia, their standards from a financial services perspective, feeding that into a large language model tooling, and going, right, here's the design that we're thinking about. What are we missing from a compliance perspective? What do we need to change in this in order to meet these compliance standards and the business security standards and all of that? Now, I can do that, but it's going to take me a week to work my way through that. But the tooling can give me something back in under 45 minutes that I can then take, review, and iterate on. And allows me to get more done more quickly.
Somebody shared with me something interesting I hadn't thought of, but from a security standpoint, from a hacking standpoint, where they actually said like, no one can hack this thing, and they basically took the application. It says, I know you couldn't hack this, but if you wanted to shore it up, improve it, so somebody couldn't get in, but if you were able to get in, where is it likely to have happened? And then reverse engineered that, and they were able to crack that application. But that's something else that you can do. You can have it both working for good or evil. You can have it going in and have AI look at and say, I want to harden this against this. What are all the common attacks? What are we seeing? What are other applications? How are they being felt? What can we change in our architecture to build up protection against this?
Yep, definitely. And again, it's all stuff that we could do. It now takes fewer people, and it takes us less time. We still have to trust but verify when it comes to AI. And I think we always will need to do so in terms of that. That's one area you sort of start to see people. And again, we know all the vibe coding memes and everything that have circulated around where people aren't doing that. And so there is very much that place where the expertise is required. But it's being able to leverage the tooling and get in and, as you say, improve the security of our products before they're released, improve our compliance, improve the resiliency, improve the cost aspects of our solutions, because again, the models can hold a whole lot more information in their head than we can at one time, and bring a whole lot of those trade-offs together, as long as they've got that right information, and then point us in a direction that we can verify and go, yes, this makes sense, or no, it very much is hallucinating. Let's try that one again.
Yeah, agreed. It's going to be interesting next couple of years. I mean, I just think that we're we can't fathom some of the changes that are going to happen. It seems like it's just happening so fast, so much, so fast.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just like days where it's just like, can I just go back to the good old days of dial-up modem where things changed very, very slowly? But this
Yeah.
is the world that we now live in. We do need to learn and adapt, and it's hard. But again, there's a sense in which if we don't, that's where we are going to get left behind. And so it's the challenge that we all need to kind of push into and go, where can we do this? And that's kind of the thing that I enjoy doing is taking that, distilling it down, sharing that knowledge broadly then in terms of, right, we've had to push through, we've had to learn, I've had to adapt here. Let me summarize what I've learned through on a hard journey so that people don't necessarily have to go through that whole journey themselves. There's value in doing that sometimes. But I think a lot of times that's the value of MVPs and the MVP program, is these are people who have spent time to go through, do that, and to then bring that knowledge out that people can learn from.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very nice way of saying that we've screwed up a bunch of things many times. We've learned from it. Don't make the same mistakes we have.
Yep.
We just are narcissistic enough that we blogged about it, we shared it, we put it out there for people to judge us.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, Jerome, really appreciate your time and getting to meet you. I hope to get back down to your part of the world. I tried to convince my wife once we were empty nesters, like, let's just go live for 6 months down in New Zealand. And once the grandkids started, she's just like, nope, not leaving.
You got to be close to the grandkids. I understand that, but next time you come here, you will have to come down, and you have to do Hobbiton.
I've done it once. I want to go again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually done Tongariro Crossing, so I've hiked Mount Doom.
Well done. Yep. That's a fair hike. So
yeah, it was a full day. But now it's the I don't remember the name of it, but the rocky crags where Frodo and Sam get lost, and then Gollum kind of leads them out down into the marshes. Like that is like on the way up the mountain, and the fog rolled in while we were walking up there, and you could see how, hey, if you're and because it's all rocks, you've got to be careful. If you get off the markers a couple times, where we realized we're off the path completely.
Yep.
But yeah. Great experience. Well, Jerome, really appreciate it. For folks that want to get in touch with you, reach out. Where are you most active in social? Where can people find you besides LinkedIn? Because we're all on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn is primarily where I am mostly social-wise. In terms of that's where I'll post what's going on in terms of the user groups and everything like that. Reasonably active on GitHub as well in terms of sharing code and being involved. oWretch on GitHub. If you can look me up there. Look me up oWretch on LinkedIn as well. Or I blog periodically. As I say, usually when I've been narcissistic enough to try and use something that Microsoft has released and finding all the warts and where it doesn't work, and I do that at solideogloria.tech.
And of course, we'll have all the links to all this stuff out in the blog posted on YouTube as well. So, well, hey, Jerome, it's been a pleasure, and hope to see you at Summit next year.
Yeah, I'm working on convincing the bosses on that one, so hopefully I'll be there.
High value activity. Yes, really recommend it. So yeah,
I heard good things about Summit, so looking forward to that.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for your time, Christian.